Coming up on This Week in Computer Hardware, NVIDIA's Tesla's V100 with Volta GPU, and NVIDIA is going to be in Toyotas. Amazon's Echo Show. Is this a ripoff? Ryzen CPUs are getting cheaper, and we got USB-C Thunderbolt dock stories to tell. All that more coming up next on Twitch.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust. This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Twitch is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware, episode 414, recorded on May 11th, 2017. The best NVIDIA GPU you'll never be able to buy.
This episode of This Week in Computer Hardware is brought to you by the Ring Video Doorbell. With Ring, you can see and talk to anyone at your door from anywhere in the world using your smartphone. It's like caller ID for your home. Go to ring.com/Twitch and get up to $150 off of a Ring of Security kit.
Greetings from the mad warehouse of mayhem and coffee. I'm Patrick Norton, and you are listening to Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware. Joining me, as always, from his beautiful chapeau, actually his office in Florence, Kentucky, Mr. Ryan Shrout of PC Per. Are you feeling the hardware love today, Ryan?
Love is an interesting term. It really comes down to, let's put it this way: nothing has broken for me today, which is, it's a high point in my week usually, if I could say that. But every test I run is leading me to run more tests. So it's kind of this compounding workload is the problem. But everything has functioned as I've requested it to. So
that's unusual and delightful. Unfortunately, you're trying to go on vacation, so that every additional benchmark you run gets you that much farther away from being able to leave.
Yes, I've already pawned off a couple of errands I had to run to my wife. You go to the vet and pick up the dog's medicine before we leave, because I'm not going to be able to make it there by 6:30, those types of things. So that's okay. It will all be fine tomorrow as I begin the 13-hour drive to Orlando, Florida. So.
You sound excited.
Not about the drive.
Will you be thinking?
Drive less so.
Oh my goodness! NVIDIA announced the Tesla V100 with Volta GPU at GTC 2017. You're kind of feeling the love for hardware? Are you feeling the love for the Tesla V100? Okay.
Pretty
much the point of the GPU Technology Conference was to announce in the opening keynote the Tesla V100 and the Volta GPU.
Yeah, like the 2-hour and 20-minute keynote at that, like exceptionally long keynote, and the Volta architecture, the Tesla V100 was definitely the big part of it. They also talked just a ton about neural networks and deep learning and all that type of stuff, but the hardware focus for them was really on the Tesla V100. So what's interesting about this? So it's a brand new architecture. It extends past Pascal. This is HBM2 based, right? It's got an HBM2 memory controller. It's got 5,120 CUDA cores. That is 42% more than the GTX 1080 Ti or Titan X, the original Titan X Pascal. So it's a huge bump in there. The frequencies are still pretty high. They're claiming this is 1455 megahertz. Now, it's necessary to point out at this point, as you show that picture of the module that is the Tesla V100, this is not a video card. This is not a graphics card. This is not something targeted at consumers. It's targeted at high performance computing, machine learning, those types of applications. And it doesn't even have a PCI Express slot or like you're used to seeing it, right? It's going to be in rack mount systems, custom designed for these types of these modules to be installed through NVLink connections. But what we kind of use these launches for is a little bit of predictive data for how the consumer product may eventually look. The comparison here is if you look back at the Tesla P100, which was the same form factor, the first launch of Pascal. It had HBM2 memory. The consumer versions of Pascal never were shipped with HBM memory, or high bandwidth memory. So again, we see the V100 with the GV100 GPU in it launches with 16 gigabytes of HBM2 memory, total memory bandwidth of 900 gigabytes per second. That's almost double what the GTX 1080 Ti is capable of with its GDDR5X memory implementation. But we don't know for certain if NVIDIA is going to take the HBM interface and bring it to consumers, or if they're going to go with a GDDR5X or a GDDR6 implementation when they eventually come out for the consumer standpoint. It wouldn't surprise me either way, to be honest with you. That's kind of like a cop-out answer. But I can easily see them just deciding that the costs of HBM2 and kind of the complication of integration are just not worth it for a $500 video card, especially when they're going to sell this for like $8,000. A little bit higher markup.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at the HBM, that 4096-bit memory interface that's on the R9 Fury, the R9 Fury X, but given the performance of the GTX 1080 Ti, I don't think it maybe is as absolutely a necessity as you might think. You know what I mean? It looks good as a checkbox feature, but if you don't actually need the bandwidth, what's the point of digging into it? I'm still stuck back at 5,120 CUDA cores, which is a pretty big jump over the GTX 1080i.
It's a big boost, and think about it. The transistor count of this GPU, the new one they announced, is 21.1 billion transistors compared to 12 billion on GP102, which was the GTX 980 Ti or 1080 Ti. I'm sorry. So a huge chip. It's 815 millimeters squared, which is, according to NVIDIA CEO on stage, the largest physical die you can make on today's technology. Which is, we actually thought it's like, to make it reliably, it's closer to like 600 millimeters squared, but they're willing to sacrifice a lot of yield to make this chip because they know that the cost they're going to be able to sell it for is going to be extremely high. It's going to be built on TSMC's 12 nanometer technology, which is also a help with the kind of getting those 21 billion transistors down to size. The other interesting thing in here that's worth pointing out is that it's a compute based part. So you've got your 15 teraflops of single precision compute. You've got 7.5 teraflops of double precision compute, which is it's 1/2 ratio as opposed to 1/32 ratio. Again, just targeting the specific audience. But NVIDIA also integrated 650 new types of cores on this GPU that they're just calling Tensor cores. And they're built for TensorFlow, the software API used for machine learning. If you don't know what TensorFlow is, it is an open source kind of standard code and API for machine learning algorithms. I don't know who exactly created it, but I know Google is probably the biggest progenitor of it. Google even released what they call the TPU, a tensor processing unit, a while back. And this is NVIDIA's attempt to kind of come into that market with 640 dedicated tensor cores on this, which claims then to have a 12x improvement in those specific matrix math algorithms necessary for machine learning compared to the Pascal GPU of last year. So by implementing a little bit of, you could call it fixed. It's not really fixed function hardware, but it's pretty close to it, right? Dedicated hardware to this specific algorithm and set of algorithms for TensorFlow. NVIDIA is again going directly at and targeting those machine learning workloads and those high dollar, high profit margin growing spaces that you see there. So it's kind of an interesting addition. Like, that is something that I absolutely do not think you would ever see in the consumer variant of this part, which is going to save die size, save some power. There's a whole lot of questions about, like, is that even something that you can, like, can you run those and the GPU cores at the same time? Can you not, because they share resources? I don't really have a full answer to that type of stuff yet, but it'll be interesting to see where it goes. And it'll be interesting to see how much NVIDIA even talks about those cores, considering how little Google was willing to talk about their TPUs, their tensor processing units, and what performance they had and efficiency they had and whatnot. So another kind of interesting twist to the Volta architecture release.
So many things to think about on that one. If you or a sysadmin, if you're running thousands of machines in a corporate environment, or maybe even hundreds of machines in a corporate environment, and you use Intel's active management technology, you probably know already, but you probably want to keep an eye out for a patch that Intel has been working furiously on. I like Ars Technica's summary. A flaw in remote management feature gives attackers a way to breach networks. This has been around for about 7 years. Basically, there's a critical flaw in the remote management features that's pretty much open up your systems to be completely and utterly controlled. So, Intel basically says there's an escalation of privilege vulnerability in the Intel Active Management technology, Intel Standard Manageability, and Intel Small Business Technology versions firmware 6.7, 6.6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 11.5, and 11.6 that can allow an unprivileged attacker to gain control of the manageability features provided by these products. It does not exist on Intel-based consumer PCs. So, if you are in the corporate realm, you might poke around if you're using active management technology or the standard manageability or the small business technology firmware versions. Just giving you a heads up on that. The other kind of crazy thing from NVIDIA this week was their super chip. Toyota has picked NVIDIA, the Drive PX supercomputers for autonomous vehicles. Did they talk about it that much during the keynote? Was it a big obsession?
I mean, they definitely talked about it a lot. I would say maybe a little bit less than expected. The announcement of Toyota using the Drive PX platform for its autonomous vehicle projects going forward is a pretty big deal for NVIDIA. It's another, Tesla's announced with it, Audi's announced with it. I think there's another partner that I'm not remembering off the top of my head, that is announced with them. They're getting all the big guys involved, and it's substantial. And the fact that they basically took a dying architecture that they had built and found a way to not only make it semi-profitable, but make it this huge feather in the cap of the company, that they're really the ones driving this new, controversial but new and exciting technology forward. And getting all those, Audi's kind of niche. No, they're bigger than that, but Tesla's super niche, but very good PR. Audi's a good step, but Toyota's a huge step, right? Like if you get Toyota, you're looking at GM, Ford level of production, depending on how quickly they do this integration. So they had some more videos, doing some more demos, but nothing different than really what we saw at CES this year. I don't think there has been any dramatic changes to the platform or to the software ecosystem. We're really just kind of still in the implementation, design, testing phase for the actual implementations of Drive PX to do what they say they're going to do. So hopefully sooner than later, we'll get to try some of that stuff out. I hope.
It was funny. Shannon did a video, went up this week on youtube.com/techthing, where she got to experience one of Intel's autonomous cars or self-driving cars at a demo day down in Santa Clara. And I've been in several self-driving vehicles, and I'm still waiting for the moment that I actually feel comfortable trusting Hal to drive me from place to place. It's probably because I just enjoy driving so much. But man, MS Build this week, Cortana is coming to your car. Watch out, Amazon. Speaking of strange and wondrous things happening in your vehicles, along with them driving you everywhere you want to go like an Autobot. Cortana's looking to edge in on the Echo universe with voice control systems. Hardin is building a Cortana speaker. And if you're not familiar with Hardin, they are an audio manufacturer that does a tremendous amount of research. They do a tremendous amount of car audio, but they also do a tremendous amount of primary research in the audio industry, and Samsung bought them recently. But they're pretty excited about the Cortana stuff. So yeah, Microsoft going all in on Cortana everywhere, much like Amazon has gone all in on Echo everywhere, and I'm Google and Apple and everybody else. Odd announcement this week that I certainly wasn't expecting. The Amazon, it's really funny because when you look at the crazy 700-digit URL for Amazon's webpage for the Echo Show. Somewhere in the middle of that is lifestyle dark ? Someday I'll figure out what that means. But if you haven't seen it, the Echo Show is here, and it's an Echo with a screen. Yeah. Shannon, for better or for worse, has already ordered one for testing. But like the tagline is, now Echo can show you things like Goatsy. 7-inch screens, $230. I'm so sorry for making that reference. So the idea is it'll show complimentary info, like, a cloud if the weather is bad. It can play videos for you. But the real new feature is that voice and video calls via Alexa calling is going to be integrated into that. So free voice calls and messaging services for Echo users and Alexa app on smartphone users. Orders now, shipping June 28th. I am curious, very, very curious to see, because I've seen so many sort of bedside / kitchen devices that never really went anywhere. This one, I think, has much more to work with than anyone I've seen in the past. And I'm also very curious to see how well Alexa calling works. But how
much better do you think this device would be if it had a battery of any size and could be even remotely mobile? Like, not mobile outside of your house, but inside your house.
Right. I think it would be more. I don't know if it would be more compelling for that, unless it was more like a tablet and less like a box. It's not exactly a big device, but it does not look like it's going to be something that you're going to want to be holding in one hand. There's some thickness to it, some depth to it.
Sure, like being able to carry it from one room to the other, set it down on a table, on a counter. Like if you're going to do a phone call with it, I don't normally stand stationary if I'm talking with somebody on my phone, right? I tend to move around and do things, which becomes difficult if I'm tethered to any particular location.
Well, it's got far-field voice recognition. It's got, I think, 8 microphones built into the top of it. They went to Dolby to do the audio stuff. So I think it promises a significantly better listening experience for music, and a similar to maybe better, because there's more space to work with, microphone experience. But there's pictures of there where there's like, if you keep scrolling down to control your smart home, there's like mom holding the baby in the jumper and a picture of the family, and then kind of opposite and facing the picture of the family, is the Echo Show, because it's going to blend right in. Show me a picture of my child vomiting. I'm going to try not to say ALEXA again. I apologize for saying that twice before. It's interesting. They also make a big deal, ALEXA, the brain behind Echo Show, is built in the cloud, so she is always getting smarter. The more you use Echo Show, the more it adapts to your speech patterns, vocabulary, and personal preferences. And because it's always connected, updates are delivered automatically. So, if you're into the Echo ecosystem, this might be super compelling for you. But yeah, it's like 41 ounces with a 7-inch touchscreen. It's got some heft to it, and a couple of 2-inch stereo speakers. And I'm very curious to hear what those sound like. So,
I think the idea is really interesting. It's a move I didn't expect, and they continue to take over my life, I guess.
Nucleus. Did you ever hear Nucleus?
I have not.
So, Recode's got a great article on this. Jason Del Rey wrote it up. Quote, Amazon invested millions in the startup Nucleus and cloned its product for the new Echo. So Amazon, ALEXA, that division had an investment arm, put $5.6 million into a startup called Nucleus. And a year later, the Nucleus now has a competitor, an ALEXA-powered tablet designed to be a, quote, dead simple home intercom system and video conferencing tool.
I hope they got a good investment out of that.
Well, they got over $5.5 million. But, Amazon just sort of, sucked their market out from under them. Although, on the other hand, this is actually the tablet version of the Echo Show that you were looking for. Right.
True. Yeah. Okay.
But Frankel, the founder, says their thesis, or Amazon's thesis, is what our thesis was. Communication is that Trojan horse to get more devices throughout the home and throughout the extended family's home. So, and then he gets a little snarky. He says, the difference is they want to sell more detergents. We actually want to help families communicate easier. So, you know, it's, there had been rumors of Echoes with a screen for a long time, but it's got to be tough if your startup suddenly finds its primary funder and primary market being splashed by the person that cut you the big check. So
agreed.
So if you're feeling the love, you can search for the Nucleus Anywhere Intercom with Amazon, Alexa, on Amazon.com. It's $198, and there's only one left in stock. If you want to support the little guy. So, it does not, however, say what the battery life is like. So,
yeah, gotcha.
Maybe there is no mobile battery.
They do show it just mounted to the walls and stuff.
Well, you know, so close and yet so far. You could plug it into a power brick.
Yeah, that's a backpack battery is what I'm going to use. Yeah.
And more cheerful news, Ryzen CPU prices appear to be dropping. This is a good thing.
Yes, it's great for the consumer.
Or is
it's
it
interesting
bad?
to see.
Is it too early for the prices to be going down? It's odd that they're going down this early. Or did Intel artificially keep the prices on their parts high to make it more difficult for me to build the 6700 system that I just replaced with an 1800X?
Probably not. I mean, so at this point, you know, this part launched in March for $399. It was selling for $333 on Amazon, like $342 on Walmart.com. By the way, that was actually like sold and shipped by Walmart, so that was a little odd to me. I didn't know they were doing PC components, but there you go. The interesting thing here, so $333 is like $60 off of its starting MSRP, which is fantastic because this is an 8-core, 16-thread part. Terrific value. You know, so you still have the 1080p kind of gaming questions that are out there, but if you're gaming at a higher resolution, it's less important. And if you do any kind of multi-threaded workload stuff, you know, productivity or production or multimedia stuff, you're going to see a huge advantage there. And I kind of did, I think the price has since gone up a little bit again, I think back to like the 350, 360 range, which is still lower than the 400 launch price. But at 333, coupling that with a $99 motherboard and $118 worth of memory that is faster than base, right? Because we've already shown that Ryzen benefits pretty dramatically from higher speed memory. You get for $550, you get this base system price that is your processor, memory, motherboard, and then you add whatever video card you want to buy, however much you want to spend. But for the heart of a system, that's a pretty compelling budget to start with, right? Like I did a system build on that site that has like a 1050 Ti in it and a 250 gig SSD, trying to keep everything under $1,000 with your case and all that. Was able to do so. But if your budget's $1,400 or $1,500, then you've got a lot of room to improve your SSD, improve your graphics card. But still starting with that $550 base was pretty compelling. The question is it too early for these prices to be this low? And I would probably say it's a little worrisome to me that the prices are dropping. Now, what you can't tell is AMD the one responsible for the price drops? Is it the resellers that are responsible for the price drops? Because that tells you who's kind of eating most, if not all, of the cost up front of the price differentials. So I think Ryzen 5 was a better received launch than the Ryzen 7. That might have something to do with it. Maybe Ryzen 5, like the 1600X, is kind of eating into the 1700s price parts on from AMD. And that may be why you're seeing some of the price drops. But I mean, Intel has made no moves to this point, right? They didn't drop prices on anything. They didn't release new parts. So we'll just have to see
really consider
what continues to happen.
To be a competitor.
I think you'll see in the second half of this year that will change, right? I think what you're seeing now is they don't want to react because any adjustment they make to pricing can only be attributed to the release of Ryzen. If they come out with new parts that happen to have lower prices, they can just talk about better yields. They can talk about better efficiencies in production side that were allowing them to do this price drop anyway. They don't have to directly say that, oh, this is because of, A, B, C type of stuff.
Why, that highly competitive processor over there had no bearing on our decision to do anything
exactly
we do here.
Precisely.
Yeah. Interesting thoughts. Let's take a moment to thank our sponsors, our friends over at, ladies and gentlemen, Ring.com. This episode of This Week in Computer Hardware brought to you by the Ring Video Doorbell. Ring's mission is to make neighborhoods safer. Today, over 1 million people use the amazing Ring Video Doorbell to help protect their homes. Ring knows home security begins at the front door, but it doesn't end there. That's why they're extending that same level of security to the rest of your home with the Ring Floodlight Cam. Just like Ring's Video Doorbell, Floodlight Cam is a motion-activated camera and floodlight that connects to your phone. With HD video and two-way audio, it lets you know the moment anyone steps on your property. You can see and speak to visitors, even set off an alarm right from your phone. Get your panic on, people, and tell them to go away. Get off my yard. Get off my yard, get off my lawn. With Ring's Floodlight Cam, when things go bump in the night, you'll immediately know what it is. For example, in my backyard, there are raccoons that are getting a little feisty. It's nice to know it's a raccoon and not somebody trying to break into my garage. Whether you're home or away, Ring Floodlight Cam lets you keep an eye on your home, offers the ultimate home security with high visibility floodlights and a powerful HD camera that puts security in your hands, and it was named the Wall Street Journal's Best of CES 2017. Monitor every corner of your property with a Ring of Security kit. Kit includes all the kits. They include a Ring Video Doorbell, your choice of either 1, 2, or 3 floodlight cams. You can connect your Ring Video Doorbell with your favorite smart locks and hubs for added convenience, monitoring, and security. With Ring, you're always home. Save up to $150 off a Ring of Security kit when you go to ring.com/Twitch. That's ring.com/Twitch. We want to thank Ring for their support of This Week in Computer Hardware. I had a wonderful opportunity to play with some USB docks, USB-C docks, Dell TB16 Thunderbolt dock, which is quite a hefty little piece of engineering, which I unfortunately left over at the other side of the building, and Kensington's SD4600P, which is a USB-C dock. So Thunderbolt from Dell, designed for Dell products, should work with other non-Dell products. Kensington's going for a broader, Mac OS X, Windows, Chrome audience, and it was interesting to use them. For example, I could never get the firmware to update with the fancy firmware update application app from Kensington. And before you run the TB16, Dell recommends, Dell flat out says, update your BIOS. This is the list of supported laptops. Update your BIOS, download and install these drivers, and then and only then can you plug the USB-C cable from the dock into your PC. And to Dell's credit, it worked fantastically. The big trick for that was, they have a relatively small number of laptops they've created it to work with, and very, very specific. They've tweaked the BIOS, they've tweaked, or the UEFI BIOS, they've got driver corrections. And Kensington's trying to work with 3 wildly divergent operating systems. And I say that because the Kensington had some issues with video hanging up or the bottom third of the screen on my laptop not working. In terms of performance, like throughput performance was fundamentally the same as a USB 3 jack on my laptop. Video quality looked good, except with when the Kensington would lock up part of my screen. But the TV16 is kind of like one of those classic Dell products where it's like, oh, they'll be selling this to the enterprise arm because it's got VGA. HDMI DisplayPort, I want to say mini DisplayPort, and I actually managed to connect a USB-C to mini DisplayPort off the off the USB-C cable or the USB-C jack on the back of the TB16. I was kind of surprised. It's been a long time since I've tried to run with a dock, and after a few days, I kind of got into the idea of being like, hey, everything's hooked up. I just plug this cable in, and I have charging and data and video all running off my laptop with a single plug. The downside of that is there's compatibility issues. MacBook for the Kensington MacBooks with the Touch Bar don't seem to be behaving well. Spectre X360 owners are having issues getting that one to run. And the one that does run pretty well, the Dell TB16, is selling for around $250 to $270, depending on where you're shopping for it. So it is not inexpensive.
Right.
But if you think, USB-C Thunderbolt is going to be around for a while, or if you're just like thinking like every time I put my laptop down and I plug in these 4 cables, that's 30 seconds of my life I could have back every time I leave or come back to this desk. I can see where the TB16 Thunderbolt dock would be particularly compelling. I love the fact that it had, not just the USB 3 jacks, but a pair of USB 2.0 jacks, because there's 3 USB 3.1 jacks on that Kensington, and once you've plugged in like a couple, like I had my mouse into my keyboard, and then the keyboard's power supply and keyboard jack into 2 of the USB 3.1 ports on the back of the Kensington dock, which left me with 1 USB 3.1 port on the front, which I used to charge my phone, which left me with no USB 3.1 ports, although there was an additional USB-C port on the back. One last thing before I completely exhaust the subject of these docks. The TB16, if you have an XPS 13, you, sir, have an XPS 13, is the USB or the Thunderbolt port on that on the left side or the right side of the laptop?
Okay, mine does not have one. I have one of the original Broadwell XPS 13s. Okay. So but I do have the XPS 13 2-in-1 here that we're testing, but I don't know the answer to your question about it.
It's on the left side. I know that because the TB16's basically proprietary Thunderbolt cable is 1.6 feet long and exits also out of the left side of the dock. So if you want to connect the dock to your laptop, you basically have to put the laptop behind the dock or your laptop on top of the dock. Otherwise, you're going to block USB 3 ports on the front of the machine. So
that sucks.
Yeah, but you start to figure out how you can move it or align it. They also offer a VESA mount for it, so you could possibly put all of the stuff.
Is it actually a proprietary cable? Can you get a longer Thunderbolt cable for that? But obviously,
according
you have to pay
to Dell, you can't get a longer cable. But basically, it's a Thunderbolt cable, but then there's this large squarish bracket that goes into the machine, and I was not feeling brave enough to take apart the loaner TB16 from Dell. Maybe I'll steel myself and go crack it open. But my understanding is that it's essentially a cable you have to get from Dell, and they only have the 1.6 foot version of it. This could change, but it worked. Once the firmware update and the drivers are done, it just worked, and it didn't create any emotional trauma in just working. I never had to be like, I'm going to pull the HDMI jack out and put it back in, and my monitor's back, which was something I had happen repeatedly with the Kensington, which led me to their firmware update tool, which says don't update your firmware if everything's working, which is always you know what I mean? It's not the kind of warning you want to get for a firmware update for a device you're running. This could make things better. It could ruin your life.
That's an important distinction. I would say I have been disappointed by the lack of options in this market, right? Like I know it's like at CES, I was kind of seeing like every notebook vendor, Asus, MSI, all these guys had these Thunderbolt docks, and they seem to be very slowly trickling out. Like the Lenovo one, we've probably got 2 or 3 Lenovo laptops we've got in here for testing, and I'm kind of like, hey, like this Thunderbolt dock is a fantastic part of that story if it all works as you claimed it would. Can we get one of these in? And it's like, nah, it's going to be a couple more months before we have units available of that. And it's not just them; it's happened to a couple of other guys, and it doesn't really. Like I was under the understanding that, hey, Thunderbolt, USB, Type-C, all this stuff was like going to solve our compatibility problems. And also help make these a little bit less expensive, and it has done neither of those things, apparently.
I think this is one of those situations where it's much more complicated than it seems, especially if you're trying to support lots and lots of different vendors. I gotta say, if you read the reviews of a lot of the sort of third-party non-manufacturer or non-laptop manufacturer built docks, you find a lot of like, it doesn't work with this, it doesn't work with that. Where is this? When are they going to fix that? Why doesn't this work? So that's you know, I think it's one of those things, much like syncing up wireless earbuds, where it seems simple as an engineering concept. And the engineers start working on it, and people start weeping and being found after, you know, sleeping the entire weekend, trying to engineer something that's much more complicated than it actually looks. Fair. Could be wrong, and it's also it's early for USB-C, much less Thunderbolt. I don't know. We will find out.
I guess. Yeah, we'll see.
You and I live in the rarefied air of relatively new laptops.
True.
You know,
fair.
It's what I really wanted to do was plug a USB-C Android phone into the Dell TB16 to see what would happen, but I wasn't brave enough to do that. But yeah, that's the other crazy thing about the TB16. It's got a 240 watt power supply, so it can basically feed like 60 watts to your laptop and then like 60 watts to any of a host of Thunderbolt devices attached to it. So
yeah, it all sounds amazing. It just needs to like actually happen.
You know what's actually happening? You can buy the TB16 now, by the way. You just have to, you know, cut the check.
I did see that on there. Yeah. I feel like I need a dock that has, like me personally, I need one that has 2 DisplayPort outputs as opposed to 1 DisplayPort, 1 HDMI to support
my DisplayPort, animated DisplayPort, and an HDMI and a VGA. In fact, if you want, I can run over there and grab it. We can double check it real quick.
Any DisplayPort would fix it, and I think it also has another Thunderbolt display pass through, right?
Yeah, it worked for me. I did not try that with multiple. I did not try the Thunderbolt pass through on the USB-C with additional monitors plugged in. So
sure, okay.
I have not thoroughly vetted this.
Yeah, okay. I see it on the specs now. There's an HDMI DisplayPort, a mini DisplayPort, and a Thunderbolt USB Type-C, Thunderbolt 3 port. Okay. I mean, that's enough for me. And the RJ45 is great.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Both of them have RJ45, gigabit Ethernet jacks. And for the most part, except for the video glitches, the Kensington worked just the way it was supposed to, which is plug and play. You shouldn't have to update the firmware on it, except for the video locking up issues. So
fair enough.
In any case, the USB-C / Thunderbolt docks are slouching towards us slowly but surely.
They're shuffling their feet on their way. Got it.
Maury got busy with a really interesting looking liquid cooling kit. I should say water cooling kit. AlphaCool's Nexos Cool Answer 360 D5 / UT water cooling kit. And man, that actually makes the H110 GT that's in my that's actually freezing my leg because the air is coming out of this case and it's so cold. This looks big. Is this as big as it looks in that first picture, or is it much more reasonable in real life?
It's pretty big. Like if you go past that reservoir shot, which takes up 2 5.25-inch bays, that is the radiator. It is a like 2.5 thickness, I guess, probably. It's a big boy, that's for sure. The radiators or the reservoir selection is interesting as well. A lot of cases nowadays don't have 5 1/4-inch bays, so this is kind of a little bit of an older mentality to the kit, right? The radiator is huge. The water block actually works okay. The problem that Maury came out with on this particular kit, this package, is that the pump that is actually, I think, very neatly attached to the back of the reservoir. So like the pump and the reservoir are one item. It doesn't have nearly enough, high enough flow rate to push the liquid through the triple thick radiator with enough force to really get the temperatures down to where I wanted it. This was kind of easily exceeded by some other much less expensive kits, as well as water blocks. The tubing is fairly high inner diameter, meaning that a lot of fluid is going to be in this system at any given time. It also means that you have to have a very powerful pump to get it to work appropriately, and that just was not the case. I think he said something about, I can't remember the exact flow rates that he was talking about and how much how far behind it was where he thought it should be, but it was a significant amount. And despite most of the other parts of the cooling kit being designed very well and implemented well, apparently it is as simple as the pump selection was poor, and they put a different pump in there. It might have been a better overall result, because as it is, the benchmark results we've got aren't great. One of the overclocking tests we weren't able to, that he's able to get with all of his other water cooling gear, didn't pass stability with this kit. So there has been an uptick in like interest in and on people on Twitter asking us questions, and people in comments and emails asking questions about water cooling. This is probably not the one we would recommend to start with. It's good to have a kit where it's all in one, but I think even this company makes a better solution than this, with similar specifications in terms of cooling capacity. Sorry, but without some of the weaknesses. I mean, some of those weaknesses are just kind of dumb, like not enough coolant to fill the loop is included. If you're a new person coming into this, that's stupid, right? Like you're not going to want to have to deal with that. Oh, now what do I replace? What can I add to it? Can I just use distilled water? I guess, I assume. So
and then you call tech support.
Yeah, which is what nobody wants, right? That's going to waste your time and drive up their costs. So, man, interesting nonetheless. It's why they do reviews, as it turns out.
Oh my goodness! Apple's going to monitor your sleep. I brazenly assume, because they just purchased the Beddit sleep monitor, or more accurately, the Beddit sleep monitor company. I should say the Beddit iPhone connected sleep system would be a more accurate description. Julie Clover wrote this up for Mac Rumors. It's an app. It's a sleep system, and it's designed to monitor your daily sleep habits through the iPhone, according to an updated privacy policy posted both on the Beddit website and the Beddit app when creating accounts. And they have been acquired by Apple, and they tell people now that your personal data will be collected, used, and disclosed in accordance with the Apple privacy policy. It's a very strange device. You basically slide it under the fitted sheet on the top of your mattress, and then it analyzes sleep data. You know, what's your heart rate, respiration, movement, snoring, room temperature, room humidity, sleep time, and then they sort of process all that information and give you the complete picture of the night, which always sounds kind of crazy, kind of awesome. But to watch, like, you know, it's pretty interesting. $150 device, and they're saying they do a better job of analyzing your sleep habits than, say, you know, a Fitbit on your wrist or clipped to your waist or something like that. So, you know, electrocardiography. How
big is this device? Does it go vertically through on top of the mattress or horizontally? What if you have multiple people in the mattress? Like, wonder how good it is at kind of discerning some of that stuff.
You know, I've been following an account called the Internet of Delete Expletive on Twitter lately, and I will be perfectly honest to say that it is tempered by enthusiasm for investigating too deeply on a lot of the Internet of Stuff, especially the stuff that doesn't seem like it's going to be around very long. That said, it's 31 by 31 inches by 0.06 inches thick. It's got a piezo force sensor, a capacitive touch sensor, a humidity sensor, a temperature sensor. There's a microphone. Basically, it uses the microphone in your smartphone. You know, Bluetooth smart automatic measurement on iOS. Does a 1 minute heart rate every 30 seconds. Resting heart rate curve, average breathing rate. Snoring events. It's pretty. I mean, it's, you know, as much as I like to mock the Internet of Stuff, this is actually a really interesting device. And I should say that I'm actually kind of fascinated by it, having two small
I am too.
Children.
Yes, agreed, 100%. And anything that tells me it can like improve my sleep patterns, I'm for. I will say, having used a Nike band and a Fitbit for a while, and now the Apple Watch, all I pretty much do is look at it, the data that these things have presented in the past, and go, well, I didn't get enough sleep clearly. And then I kind of move on. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be solving with it necessarily other than recognizing I didn't get enough sleep. But I kind of feel that already in my heart that I know I didn't get enough sleep that night. So
my soul aches because I did not
out.
sleep.
Yes.
And
so does everything else.
To go back to your original question, you can use bed at 3 for 2 people sleeping in the same bed, or a shared bed. You will need 1 sensor per person per phone. So you can sleep track 1 person, you can sleep track 2 people, but each of them has to have their own sensor and their own phone. And ballistocardiography is a technique for producing a graphical representation of the repetitive motions of the human body arising from the sudden ejection of blood into the great vessels with each heartbeat. And ballistocardiography is a big part of the bed monitor.
Big word, too.
Oh, I so rarely get to say big words. So yeah, Bennett does ballistocardiography. I'm going to just let that go right there.
Good idea.
Oh my goodness. And wearable sales. Remember smartwatches?
I do. Mine is dead on my wrist currently.
That's so sad. Because you're going on vacation and you want your smartwatch to track your every movement.
I will charge it. I promise.
Well, another Mac Rumors article. Strategy Analytics says that Apple is the world's largest wearables vendor as of Q1 2017 with an estimated 3.5 million Apple Watch shipments. That overtook Fitbit. Gives Apple like 15.9% of the global market share. Fitbit did 2.9 million wearables. Xiaomi did 3.4 million wearables. And that is a big trend up. That's 50% more, more than 50% more than Apple sold last year in the same time period. So 2.2 million in Q1 16, 3.5 million in Q1 17. Total market is looking to be about 22 million units in the first quarter of 2017. So, and Apple, Xiaomi, Fitbit, between the 3 of them, they own about 45% of the markets, and the other 55% is across every other wearables vendor. So, interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And, yeah, you're feeling it?
Well, it was interesting. I was listening to somebody talk about the size of that market now and like Apple's earnings that they had last week or something like that. Also, it was interesting that they no longer called it the watch category. It was the wearables category because they owned headphones now, and the AirPods and whatnot. But I mean, it's clearly growing. I still think that market has a lower ceiling than many people want to believe, right? Like I think there's significantly lower number of people that want to have a smartwatch in addition to a smartphone until, as it turns out, the smartphone is replaced by something like a wristband or a watch or whatever, right?
Or your headphones.
And I'll be the first to admit that as an Apple Watch user, I don't do anything incredibly productive with it except read my text messages before I go to my phone to read and reply to my text messages. And it's just still annoying that like the Gmail app doesn't show you the whole email on your watch, right? You only get like the first 3 or 4 lines of it or something like that, right? And it's like, okay, if I could just scroll through all of it, then I wouldn't have to go to my phone to even see what the rest of the message is, and I could archive or trash or do whatever from the watch. I still do see battery life improvements on the phone because of the watch, right? I think it's a net positive for me in terms of not turning on the phone screen and checking it and instead using the watch. But other than that, I feel like I underutilize the technology.
Basically, it would suck less if it sucked less.
Yeah. And I think there's also probably this learning curve.
Yeah, I mean, I found it useful as a physical monitor, a heart monitor, but all of the messaging stuff is so condensed to try to be useful in that screen. It doesn't let me. I found most of the notifications and email stuff to be completely useless. and that was frustrating because I wanted it to liberate me from my phone, but it just ended up being like I got annoyed by the same stuff twice. And you can change the settings and I don't know. It was frustrating. I feel like they launched it too early. They should have sort of gotten the software up to the 2.0 phase before they launched it, but it's probably also very early in the life of mobile devices.
Yeah.
One last story before we go. Qualcomm launches the Snapdragon 660 and 630 mobile platforms. If you are keeping score at Qualcomm, the Snapdragon 800 is the premium tier, the 600 is the high tier, the 400 is the mid tier, and the 200 is the entry-level tier. So more LTE connectivity, GPU performance. They've got a Snapdragon X12 LTE modem that shipped with the 820, 821 system on a chip and integrated that into both the 660 and the 630. So they can run like Cat 12 or 13 modems and speed as high as 600 megabits per second downstream. That's like 3x carrier aggregation, and 150 megabits per second upstream, which is 2x carrier aggregation. There seems to be a lot of really good mid-range phones coming out, and I just think most of the interesting stuff in the phone market is happening at the mid-range. And these obviously won't be out probably till next year at the earliest.
No. Actually, Snapdragon 660 phones will be out this quarter, and then 630 by the end of this year, probably by the end of next quarter. And I agree with you 100%. Like the super high end, the premiums, whatever you want to call them, the Snapdragon 835s, the high end Samsung Exynos and the S8 Plus and all that are the most impressive devices. But if you look at like the 630 and the 660 here, they are getting essentially the exact same hardware that the Snapdragon 820, 821 had just last year, right? So the chip that is in the Google Pixel is now being cut in price and implemented into a different tier of product from them. And so you get like the Snapdragon X12 modem is impressive. It's up to 600 megabits downstream and 150 megabits upstream. The inclusion of the new DSP, of the new ISP is impressive. 2x2 Wi-Fi, multi-user
Bluetooth
MIMO Wi-Fi. Yeah.
Quick Charge 4, USB, basically like all the mid-range, USB 3.1 or USB-C 3.1. I'm kind of excited.
It's pretty interesting, and so I will be the first to admit again, like I don't pay a whole lot of attention to the kind of the step below phones, right? The flagship phones get the attention because they're always in the new tech, but seeing the first implementations of the 630 or whatever is 660 is going to be interesting to see how they do compare to something like the Google Pixel that was released just a year and a half beforehand, and then how much more competitively priced they're going to be. That's really what it comes down to, right? Like if I was looking to buy an unlocked Galaxy S8 and it's $900 on Amazon, and it's like, okay, this is still kind of ridiculous. If you can start getting the 660 Snapdragon 660 platform and $200, $300 phones, it's a really, really compelling upgrade path for people that are on older devices that don't realize that there's a much better solution out there.
Well, hopefully they will. I don't know. It's been interesting watching some of the phone reviews on PC Mag, Android Authority, and some other places where they do a lot more of the mid-range and the low-end phones. Man, when the cameras finish catching up to the mid-range, it's going to be very tough to justify spending the money. Well, I mean, other than you want the best model or that one's the fanciest or it has the new whatever they invent, but these parts are looking powerful and really well outfitted for the price points they're going to be selling at, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah, very much so.
Look over at my aging iPhone, which I don't need to replace, but if the right $300 phone comes along, who knows what could happen. Oh, my goodness. You are off on vacation. Is there anything you can tease coming up on PC Per before you disappear out the door?
I never fully disappear. That's the positive and negative of the internet. I'm trying to finish. The thing I'm trying to get finished before I leave is really a look at latency dependencies on Ryzen and Intel processors and what that may or may not mean for the reasoning behind some gaming performance deltas we see. And that is the story I was talking about before, where every time I did a test, I wanted to run 3 more tests to like double check something or triple verify or do whatever. And eventually you get to this point where you just have to like say, I'm done. I'm done testing. I'm going to write and make assumptions based on all the data I have. So that's kind of where I'm at there.
That horrible
we have
moment
some
where you're like
notebooks
100 benchmarks in and, oops, sorry.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's like, you know, I've been testing for 3.5 days with 2 processors, and it's just like, okay, it's just, okay, stop. Go right now.
Am I in the margin of statistical insignificance, or is there just one last test I will find that will just crack the whole story open? Which is always awkward when you realize the first 90 tests were the wrong one, but the 91st and 92nd test told you everything you were looking for.
It's incredibly frustrating as a reviewer to have that, yeah. And it's also interesting, we always have this debate with vendors when they send us hardware, like somebody will send a video card 3 days before launch, and sometimes they'll send it 2.5 weeks before launch. And I always have this internal debate about which is better. Obviously, the default answer is more time with the product is better. I can present a better picture and a better story to our readers and help them make their buying decisions. On the other hand, when you have it for 3 weeks instead of 1, you just find reasons and tests and things to maintain for 3 weeks instead of just 1 week, right? So sometimes having this artificial cutoff is a little bit beneficial in that regard, in terms of focusing you on what you need to get done to get it done. But I guess that's a little inside baseball. But that is what we have. We'll have some other stuff up this week as well. The website, as it turns out, doesn't stop while I'm gone. At least I hope not. I guess I should check every once in a while. I will do that.
It's always awkward when it stops when you don't want it to.
I actually turn the website off. It just goes, it's going to be one big 404 the whole time I'm on vacation, just in case.
Let me know how that works out for you. I may have to try that. Tech thing, of course, the USB-C docking stations, if you're curious what those look like in action. That was about QoS on routers, which came out of a discussion about cable modems, because Shannon had problems with when she was, say, doing something as simple as, photos were auto-uploading off her Google Pixel onto her Google Drive. It was creating lag issues that were getting her husband fragged in games, and the solution turned out to be a new cable modem. And she bought a 6190, and people were like, oh, couldn't you fix the problem with QoS? But it seems to be that adding additional channels on the cable modem kind of opened the doors to better performance in her house. And we did some follow-ups on that. Tech picks for Mother's Day. A great big pile of tech for mom that costs under $100. So
very cool.
Something to consider, if it's Thursday and you don't have your Mother's Day gifts left, or Mother's Day gifts yet. I assume you're going on vacation for Mother's Day?
I am, but I'm only taking my wife, not my mother, so noted.
Perhaps you can get your mother a nice gift from our list. It's not too late to Amazon Prime at the mom's house.
Oh, man.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, you can find more of Mr. Ryan Shrout at PCPer.com or at Ryan Shrout. On the Twitter, I'm at Patrick Norton on the Twitter. You can find me at techthing.com or avxl.com, where madness is afoot, discussing time phase arrays on speakers, along with a bunch more interesting stuff on how to repair, if you have a gray or a white bloom on the monitor, we have ways you can fix that, and they're scary, but they're worth listening to. And that's avxl.com, which I host with Robert Heron. And if this is your first episode of Twitch, welcome. Do yourself a favor, head over to twit.tv/TWICH. That's twit.tv/Twitch. You're going to find all of our older shows, information on how to subscribe, and it's good stuff, people. To each and every one of you, thank you so much for listening to This Week in Computer Hardware. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next week. I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Ryan Shrout.
Have a great weekend.